All right, good morning, Gamecock Nation. Welcome into another episode of GC Live. Wes Mitchell here with Chris Clark. Got plenty to get to, of course, breaking down the loss to Clemson. We'll dive a little bit into what the offseason means. Obviously, a pivotal offseason for Shane Beamer and company. And then, of course, National Signing Day, believe it or not, coming up on Wednesday. Gamecocks with 14 commitments right now, all set to ink. And we'll see if they add a couple more guys there as well. So a lot to get to here. But first, let me tell you about our guy, Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans, ClintHammond.com, 803-422-6797. NMLS number 71597. Like we always tell you, if you are in the market for a new home or you've just thought about home ownership and that's a leap you are ready to make or think you might be ready to make, give Clint a shout. He's going to walk you through the entire process, let you know how much money you need to be saving in terms of that down payment, let you know how much you need to be budgeting for in terms of what you're going to owe each month, and just really kind of take that process and simplify it for you while also giving you several options that could lead to home ownership. Again, that phone number, 803-422-6797, ClintHammond.com.
And our friends over at Ferry Chevrolet is where you need to go if you're in the market for a new or used vehicle. If you're thinking about it, if you're ready to potentially buy, trade in, whatever it may be related to vehicles, definitely check them out. They've been in business for about 100 years, since 1926. Ferry Chevrolet started right in the Palmetto State in St. Matthews, now conveniently located in Orangeburg, right off of I-26, conveniently located between Columbia and Charleston. But you can also check out their inventory online, ferrychevrolet.com, F-A-I-R-E-Y, ferrychevrolet.com, or give them a call, 803-937-4531, still led by a fourth-generation dealer in Joseph Ferry. Been a great partner since we brought them on board as a sponsor here on GamecockCentral.com. Love working with them, and they are a reliable, family-owned, one-stop shop for your vehicle needs. Again, that's ferrychevrolet.com, 803-937-4531.
All right, Chris, we got to talk about it, man. Maybe if you're on the podcast version and you don't want to hear about the game and just want to hear about other things, just scrub on forward. But we do have to talk about it. South Carolina falling to Clemson on Saturday. Chris, man, I don't know if this is a lazy take or not. I'll let everybody else be the judge. But, dude, just to me, was just a microcosm of everything we have seen for most of the year. Like if you know, we always talk about every game stands on its own merit, and that's true to an extent. But, you know, sometimes as teams get later and later into the season, sometimes they kind of are what they are. And, you know, Carolina has tried to tweak. They've changed, obviously, offensive line coach. They've changed play caller. They've changed personnel at positions on offense, you know, at O-line and running back. Like, we've seen them kind of tweak at wide receiver. You know, the last 4 or 5 games of the year, you see Jaden Sellers playing a lot more. It's not necessarily the same guys out there, you know, like there have been tweaks. There have been tweaks to the coaching staff in terms of who's hands-on at different positions. And that being said, this game just felt much like many of the other ones this season, all the way down to, you know, not really being able to stay on the field on offense, but having enough explosive big plays to keep you in the game. You know, turnovers on offense, particularly, you know, where you get down and you're in a position to score, you turn the ball over. A defense that gave you a chance to win, but also struggled to get off the field on third downs. And I just felt like, man, that's been such a bad recipe for South Carolina in terms of like complimentary football, is that like we knew this defense was going to take a step back this year because the talent they lost. And this defense has kept you in most of the games you have played. And even, you know, at the end of the half, you're going, man, Clemson has moved the ball a lot in this game. Defense kind of buckled down a little bit in the second half, kept you in it in the third quarter after both defenses gave up a bunch of points in the second quarter. But from that complimentary football standpoint, that combination of being so explosive oriented on offense and then having to be basically like a bend but don't break on defense where you're giving up some first downs, and so that means your opponent is on the field for like all day. It just, I don't know, man. It really just felt like we were watching a movie that we had all seen before.
Yeah.
Right down to you're going, hey, fourth quarter game. Is this when they can kind of break through maybe? And I was sitting there, man. So the defense is holding on for dear life, right? Clemson's right on the edge of field goal range. And, in some games, we've seen that part of the movie where defense is just dog tired, it feels like. Missouri game, Missouri kicks that late field goal to put it up to 2 scores. LSU game, similar situation there. The defense is Clemson is right at the edge of field goal range, and they have a big-legged kicker. They get a couple of tackles for loss. They force the punt. And, Chris, I'm sitting there going, man, if Sellers can do again what he did last year in this moment, how iconic would that be? So you had the opportunity to break through. And then the very beginning of the drive, the most Gamecock 2025 thing ever, ball pops up in the air. Clemson gets an easy pick six and curtains at that point. But, I don't even know if we have to say more than that about this game, dude. Like, it just played to the script a little too much.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I'll try to add more. You're sitting there going, after the first half, you're going, wow, Clemson has, in some ways controlled the game. And Shane Beamer even said this on Saturday after the press conference. You're going, how's this 17-14? Clemson has been on the field for 21 something minutes. You've been on the field for 8 something minutes. The difference, of course, is that you had 2 explosive scores. You had the Nick Harbor deep ball. You had the Vandrevius Jacobs ball that when it was thrown, Wes, I'm going pick, and Jacobs snags it out of the air. Clemson misses, and he outruns everybody to the end zone. And that was the difference. But this is football. A score is a score. If you get it in one play, if you get it on a 14-play drive, it really doesn't matter. So you're going into the half, you're down 3. In some ways, you're feeling pretty bad because you feel like Clemson has kind of controlled the game. On the other hand, you're going, South Carolina just plays better in the second half, plays a little bit better. It's a game that's very winnable. You get to the fourth quarter, that last scenario, you get the defensive stop you need. I was on one hand, I was very surprised that Dabo Swinney didn't send out Nolan Hooser to try what would have been, a 56-yard field goal? The same distance that he nailed one in the ACC title game last year. On one hand, I'm going, if you go out there and hit that, it's probably game over at that point in all reality. Chooses to punt, chooses to trust his defense. On one hand, you understand that because Clemson's defense did stop South Carolina for most of the game. On the other hand, you're going, if South Carolina can A, put together a drive, or B, just hit one of those explosive plays that they already hit twice early in the game, this is still a game that despite everything else, they can go win. And it was almost, Wes, I don't know if it was the most painful possible way to lose the game. Maybe if South Carolina had driven the ball a little bit more down the field, got to about the 40, the 30, maybe if they'd driven down to, inside the 10 and don't make a fourth down when they need a touchdown to go win the game, maybe that would have been more painful. In some ways, I think having all that hope, there was a guy behind me. This guy, first of all, language is very colorful. He was also doing a little play-by-play for us during the game. He was calling out the formation, the time on the clock. I guess he thought he was doing a public service because we didn't have a broadcast, so we didn't have the radio. So he was giving a little play-by-play. He said, all right, He's, he's talking to the team like they can hear him. All right, guys. Legacy drive, 95, 96 yards, whatever it was. I think he said 95. All you got to do is go down and score, and you win this game. He's calling it out. Ball snapped, immediate pick. In some ways, like maybe that's even more painful because it came literally on the first play. It reminded me, Wes, in some ways of you mentioned the Missouri game earlier. You give up some scores, but you do enough defensively. You hit some big plays. You can't run the ball. When you did find the running game a little bit later in that contest, it feels like you kind of got away from it a little bit, South Carolina seemed to be kind of passing to set up the run a little bit more in the game, and maybe that's why they get the ball back like they have in the Missouri game, like they have in the Bama game, and others in the fourth quarter with a chance to go score, and they can't get it done, and you get the painful turnover. So microcosm's a great word. That's exactly what it was. It just kind of summed up the season, right? Where things you don't do enough in the course of the game to be able to get into position to where you're not having to go get that one last stop, or you're not having to go make that one last drive. And the pain level this season, Wes, has been maximized. This isn't a South Carolina team that's gone out and gotten beaten 42-6 by everybody. In some ways, it almost hurts worse because they have been close in a lot of these games, Missouri, Bama, LSU, Clemson, et cetera, and they haven't been able to finish really any of them that they've had the opportunity to go win in the fourth quarter. So, really every phase of the game, every side of the ball factors in. A lot of the concerns you had about some of these matchups, I think, came to fruition, right? Clemson got some easy completions. They schemed up some things offensively. They one-on-one receivers versus DBs made a lot of big plays. And for South Carolina, they were once again too overly reliant on making the big play offensively. And they did get a couple for scores, but beyond those, they couldn't sustain drives. They're frequently behind in field position. You can go on and on. I'm just rambling at this point. The point is, it's a lot of the same stuff that we've just seen all year.
Yeah, third down conversions, man. One for 11. I'm trying to think of even at what point they got the one, because for much of this game, it was you were over on third and fourth down for much of this game. And, the final fourth down conversion was after it was already a 2-score game, that catch by Jaden Sellers, I'm pretty sure. So 1 for 11 overall on third down, 1 for 3 on fourth down. And, here's the thing, dude. They were getting, they had the 2 big plays, but then I feel like they were also getting other big chunk plays in the passing game.
They were.
Almost threw for 400 yards in this game. But it was still kind of like chunk play, back behind the sticks again. Chunk play, back behind. And so it was kind of, even the 15, 18, 20-yard gains weren't consistent, which I know you're not going to be able to just – nobody, even if the opponent is struggling defensively in the secondary, is going to be able to consistently hit 20-yarder after 20-yarder. So it was, could you mix in the 50-plus yarder and the 20-yard chunk play with 5 here and 4 there. And I'm with you, man. It did. I thought the game might be about to shift when the Carolina running game got going just a little bit. It was like all of a sudden there's a little bit of room to run here. All of a sudden, is Clemson starting to get worn down? All of a sudden, Russell Faison, you talk about the hot hand, and I know a lot of people, myself, I thought this might be a big opportunity for Juwan Howell with the momentum he's had. Really was not the case on Saturday. But now I do. Here's the thing too, dude. When in the first half, you're basically going, every drive is essentially like 3 and out or huge scoring play. You're just not going to have time to get into the flow of your offense. Like if you have like 16 plays and a half,
mm-hmm.
That is unheard of. So to me, that's kind of one of those things too, where people will be like, well, you have to establish the run or you have to get this guy involved. You can't get anybody involved in 16 plays and a half. So it was really hard. I feel like, how do you know who the hot hand is? How do you even know how to set up plays for other plays if you just haven't run any plays? And so it really, though, I felt like, I was like, man, if the running game opens up as it appears to be just a little bit, and they can keep hitting some of these chunk plays, maybe this game shifts. Like, we've all watched a football game that has felt one way, and then it just kind of shifts. I thought at that point, maybe we start to see a little Sellers QB run. I was kind of waiting on, it felt like the end of the game last year where Dow just said, we're going Sellers run left, Sellers run right. We're going to let our guy carry the football. Now, Clemson, credit where it's due. They could not cover South Carolina, especially down the field, but they tackled Sellers a lot better. The game plan, I think, was much more zone oriented. It was keep him in. I can't say keep everybody in front because they didn't do that, but it was keep the run game contained. There's an extra guy in the box a lot of times. All eyes on the quarterback. Multiple hats to the QB. Don't let him get going. And so, I think they had a similar plan to what a lot of teams have had success against Carolina with, which is, all eyes on the quarterback. Don't get in man coverage. Let them run off all the DBs and then let Sellers break the first line of contain and then have a huge chunk run. That's when he really gets going. So, I think for the way it played out, though, man, it just, you're averaging, let's see, 23 of 42, 381 yards passing, over 9 yards per pass. But then, as we talk about, man, run game, just not giving you enough. You turn the ball over. Once you get down, like, I feel like the interception after you were in field goal range, that's something we've seen this offense have trouble with, either just bogging down once they get towards field goal range, taking the big sack to be out of field goal range, throwing the pick. This is, once again, Chris, we talk about margin for error and how tight the margins are in college football right now. Say everything that just happened, like all the little things we talked about throughout the course of the game, it ultimately came down to Clemson won this game in the margins as well. I still, frankly, do not think that was an interception. The ball hit the ground. However, it was called an interception, so it's an interception. So if you have a potential field goal for South Carolina there that you give away, and you handed them a field goal by roughing the punter on a play where you were actually about to have, for one of the few times this entire game, good field position.
Yep.
So, Clemson controlled the field position throughout, which I think, and I'm getting super long-winded here, I think that goes back to, though, hey, the defense is getting stops, but it was after a few conversions every time. So even when you're getting off the field, Clemson is resetting the field position of the game. So they're kind of going, well, we'll take that as a win because we reset the field position, and we don't believe South Carolina can go 90 yards methodically down the field at all, which was proved to be true.
100%. They trusted their defense with how they played. And I think that's probably what went into that decision to, hey, instead of kicking this 56-yarder, even though you have a kicker who he can't, I won't say normally make them. He's certainly proven in game situations that he can do it. It's, hey, let's punt this thing and make him drive the field. And look, that turned out to be the right decision. If you miss a field goal there, South Carolina's got a lot more favorable field position. Instead, you decide to punt it. You pin South Carolina deep, and the very next play, you get the interception. It's so many small things. There's been some kind of and I guess you chalk this up to rivalry stuff. Not a lot of Clemson fans are completely beating their chest about this win. They didn't win by 40 or 50. Their season hasn't gone as well. They earned the win. They earned the bragging rights, right? But I have seen a couple notions that they like dominated this game. They dominated certain areas, of the game. But if not for the turnovers, and I'm certainly not making an excuse. We're trying to analyze why the game went the way it did. The turnovers were huge. I mean, you mentioned a couple of them, Wes. Obviously, the late pick six when you're trying to go down and win the game on a drive was huge. The roughing the punter was big. South Carolina avoided an early potential disaster when Jalen Kilgore muffed a punt. He was able to fall on it. You think about
that play
early in the game, Wes, you got a chunk play to Jared Brown that I think was a 30-plus yard reception. You fumble. Now, ended up being okay because you don't want to rely on this. Cade Klubnik underthrows a ball that when the ball was snapped, I'm sitting there calling out touchdown because the DB was beat, frankly, initially. Underthrows it a bit. Kilgore makes a great play, picks it off. But that was a drive in which if Jared Brown doesn't fumble that ball, you're at like your own 45-yard line. At the minimum, you probably have an opportunity to flip the field and make Clemson drive. Instead, you miss that opportunity. You've got, a couple other plays that weren't turnovers, but ended up being integral to the game. You got the 4th and 3. Thought South Carolina had a pretty good play call on. Sellers throws the ball over the middle. Wade Woodaz tips it, falls incomplete. Thought he had Mo Brown kind of out in the flat area. More open than that. So that was a small play. Lenoris Sellers later in the game, there was a drive where he had a 13-yard run where you saw space open for maybe the first time. Last year, that's like a 30-yard run or maybe a touchdown. This year, it's just a 13-yard run. Credit to Wade Woodaz. He got over there, diagnosed the play, got him on the ground. So it's a positive play. It's 13 yards, but it's not 30 yards. It's not a score, right? So they did a much better job, Clemson did, of being able to contain Sellers. They were able to get sacks again. Felt like the ball needed to come out earlier. There was the 1-minute drive before the half, right, where it was kind of, again, a microcosm of the season, something that we've seen so much. South Carolina's in a mode where they're trying to go, pick up some yardage. They're trying to go faster, and it just goes completely awry because you take a couple sacks, right? You don't end up getting anything. It just, instead of giving yourself a chance to go score late to, get more points, even go win a game. We saw late in the game in certain situations like Alabama, you take a sack, things go awry, you turn the football over, right? So a bunch of small plays in there that, if you can just, as poorly as things went in some areas, you had plenty of opportunities in this game. So it was a few individual plays here and there. And frankly, the turnovers were, as you laid out earlier, Wes, they were just killer.
Yep, turnovers and the what doesn't go down as a turnover, but is essentially a turnover when you're getting the ball punted back to you and you rough the punter and you extend a drive for Clemson. Essentially, that it should count as a turnover, frankly. And then, I just thought Clemson, it was not a massive day for Adam Randall. There were certainly times when there was like no room for him to run, but then I felt like because Clemson was staying on the field and because Clemson was able to complete passes in kind of more intermediate areas, they were able to keep chunking away or kind of as the game progressed, it felt like Randall had more and more room to run, which is typically if you can stay on the field and kind of stay dedicated to the run game. A lot of times you do see that. He ends up going for 102 on 24 with a touchdown. So, 4.3 yards a carry. That's not Hall of Fame numbers, but certainly not a bad day at the office either. And, Carolina, if they could have had that from their running game, they'd probably win the game. I think that was one of our buy or sells on the show on the radio on 107.5. What was it, 9? Tyler said 9 of the last 10. The team that has had the run game advantage has won this game.
Yep.
And so 10 of last 11 now on that one. So once again, and again, it wasn't some huge day running the football, but it was enough to keep. I'd love to see for the stat nerds how the success rate, which kind of measures your down to down, how often can you make that first down into a makeable second down? How often can you make the second down into a makeable third down? What that looked like for this game, because obviously I'm sure Carolina's was just not good, man. You did see something from these receivers, dude. Let's turn this ahead into the offseason, and we'll talk about a couple of our great sponsors here in a moment. But you got anything else on this game, Chris?
Man, I think we've covered it. I'm sure we could talk about the game for the whole hour. I'm not sure if that's I don't know, maybe some people want to relive it and wallow in it and things like that, but I kind of sense that for quite some time people have been ready to move on to the off season. And so I think we kind of summed it up, man. We've been talking about it for about 20, 25 minutes. I think that's the story of the game, Not going to lessen the pain. Think we kind of analyzed it, gave our take on the why. So we should probably talk about the offseason because, man, it is going to be a busy one in Columbia.
Yeah, Trey says turn the page. Yeah, man, I think a lot of Gamecock fans would have loved the idea of softening how this season has gone by getting a win over your rival, as opposed to what we got, which was kind of, you already have the knife in, but now it just felt like it was twisted. Hey, here's one final little twist to end the year, and we're going to make it feel just like every other sort of stab throughout the season. So, yeah, a lot of people are ready to move on to the offseason. And as we've used the word pivotal pretty much for the last month and a half, looking ahead to this offseason. OC hire in the works, a National Signing Day in the works for Wednesday. And then somebody asked about, hey, when will we know about players leaving or staying? And so the portal opens January 2nd. However, end of year meetings are beginning this week. So I think that for South Carolina, you're and really everybody, honestly, and we're already seeing this to an extent, most of the guys who decide, hey, I'm going in the portal, you're probably going to already hear about it now. They're going to go ahead and get ahead. That will let other teams know, hey, this guy's going to be in the portal. That will let other teams ramp up their tampering, go ahead and let players know, hey, we're interested in you, to be completely honest. So portal doesn't open until January, but guys are going to let other teams know what's up. So you should start to find out in the next week or so, I think, on a lot of these guys. There's going to, of course, be some turnover. We know that's going to be the case. The real question for South Carolina will just be how much, and is it your key guys, or can you keep your key guys? And Chris, I think there's a lot of guys on this roster too, man, beyond, the two everybody asks about, Lenora Sellers, Dylan Stewart. There's some talent on this roster that aren't quite the marquee names like those two, but are talented, that have bigger futures ahead of them, that you saw flashes from this year, that I think will be very important for South Carolina to try to keep in town. As I think this happened right in the middle of the show last Monday as well. The sun and whatever angle it comes in, just, I don't know, makes me look like I'm shooting a film or something. I don't know.
Yes.
A horror film.
Yeah, it is a scary movie. Yeah, that's been, I'm literally, Wes, looking at my Ask Chris thread on Gamecock Central and have a question about when are we going to start hearing about portal defections, right? And totally agree with you, right? Like, people can announce right now if they wanted to, hey, when the portal opens, I'm going in the portal. A lot of those things are still being worked through. We don't have answers yet. It's something, Wes, that you and I are going to be following the entire month and obviously into January. Those conversations are ongoing. There's not really anybody that I can say this person's definitely leaving. There's not really anybody you can point to and say, hey, this person's absolutely staying. But you make a good point. Everybody wants to know about Sellers and Stewart. There are other players on this team, who South Carolina wants to have back that are priorities. I mean, Wes, think about, it's pretty obvious that a lot of other programs would love to have a Lenore Sellers or a Dylan Stewart. Sure, that makes total sense. But you don't think some teams would love to say, Fakari Swain, he's pretty good. J.R. Johnson, Justin Okoronkwo. Like, you can go on some of these young receivers, right? Maybe even a guy like Shed Surratt, right? I'm speculating to some degree, but if you have talent on your team, other schools are going to show interest. It is the nature of the beast now. That also doesn't mean if you hear online rumors or online talk about so-and-so's interested in so-and-so, that also doesn't automatically mean, well, that guy's gone, right? Remember the 2023, the offseason after the 2023 season, Wes, there were not only rumors, but very real possibilities that South Carolina was going to lose some of their top guys. They were able to mostly keep those guys, and a lot of them ended up being integral to the success of the next season. I think that South Carolina, Shane Beamer, his staff, they're going to have a similar challenge on their hands this year, right? They're coming off of a 4-8 season. They've got other schools that are deep pocketed that maybe had better seasons that are going to be pursuing some of their talents. You may say, well, is that legal? Well, no, but it happens. And so it's something we got to monitor. But sitting here 2 days after the conclusion of the regular season, we don't have a lot of those answers. The best I can tell you guys is that we're going to be tracking all that throughout, just like we have every other year since the portal began, since transfer portal opened, since NIL came onto the scene. There's always a lot of activity in December and in January, and this year is going to be no different.
Yeah, I think you also just got to be careful with all that too, man, because a guy can be staying at one moment and leaving at the next. A guy can be leaving at one moment and then staying at the next. That's an excellent point, though. After that 2023 season, how many guys, dude? And some of this was like public, like it was leaking out. Oh, this guy's leaving, that guy's leaving. How many guys did it seem fairly like not just rumors, either heavily considering leaving or straight up leaving that ended up staying? And then you also have, and this was before I think everybody has come a long way in their NIL efforts, and you obviously have Rev Share now as well. This is before like NIL was a thing, but everybody's kind of figuring out how to manage it all. You had like a Marshawn Lloyd. Oh, he's coming back, and then he goes home for a day, and my man is in the portal. So, like, it really kind of changes on a whim. So Joey asked about the teleconference. No teleconference on Sunday. That I was trying to think back. That was not a just because things are bad right now decision. They have not. Pretty sure they don't do the teleconference at the end of the year. If I'm remembering correctly, they didn't do one last year, final Sunday either. I think. So maybe don't quote me on that, but I think that's right. Do you remember, Chris?
Nope. I was hoping you did. We can go back and check the tape and look.
Yeah. Regardless, Joey, there was not one. We didn't just not post it or not cover it. It did not exist this time. So, yeah, dude, retention, though, going to be massive. Again, I think beyond, to me, I was definitely thinking of Vakari Swain may have been your best player this year. Honestly, dude, like when you look at what he actually, not the name, not the hype coming in, but, was someone who made those big impact plays on special teams, played really good coverage at DB, just, you remember back, dude, this guy didn't go through the spring. Like, he was a little bit of a forgotten guy.
Yeah.
Because he didn't go through spring practice and had to work through some things to get back on the team. And they stuck by him. Now you're going, that's one of the most pivotal guys to try to keep, I think.
Yeah, I think he is. And, he's got, if you're kind of thinking, I think we have to think about college football as number one, it's year to year free agency, basically, right? And so a guy like, and look, when I'm saying all of this, I am speaking kind of in hypotheticals. I'm not sitting here saying Bakari Swain's looking to leave. Please don't go to Twitter. It said Chris Clark said that Bakari Swain's probably leaving or he's on the market. But in reality, any player can be on the market on a year-to-year basis because of the current setup, or I guess you could say the lack of setup with all this stuff. So you look at Swain, he's a really good athlete. He's got speed, athleticism, size. You look at what he can do at DB, but you also look at the added value of what he can do as a punt returner, Wes. This guy is absolutely fearless as a punt returner. You know, I know he hasn't broken one in a while since early in the season when he was making so many waves. But I wish I could have 1/10 of Bakari Swain's confidence with anything that I do. You know, he got that one the other day. I mean, it's bouncing in the air. There's about 40 guys, it seems like, around. I got this. You know, I mean, just taking it off the bounce. Got great hands, just very sure of himself and really electric. And that was one of the few times where I asked you the other day, I think, Wes, I'm like, has Bakari ever had like the first guy make him miss, you know, actually tackle him? That time he did, but that's because, again, they're like the entire Clemson roster was surrounding him. When he catches the ball clean, he's really, really hard to get on the ground. So, you know, don't mistake the fact that this team went 4-8 this year for some thought that there's like not some talent on this team. Are there deficiencies? Absolutely. That's one of the reasons that they're 4-8. But is there some talent on this team that, if they can keep them, will end up being integral to if they can have success next year or not? Yeah, absolutely. And Bakari's one of those guys, and there are certainly others, you know, but he's one of the top guys on this team. So I would think he'll be a priority. There are a bunch of other guys that fall in that same category.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you got to look at, all right, there's talent on this team. Obviously, they got rid of Mike Shula as offensive coordinator for a reason. So how much could some of the talent on this team better show itself with a different OC in charge, a different plan on offense, a different approach on offense? How different would this team have looked if Lenora Sellers kind of played to what we thought he would this year? You know, I think that's a big element. Not that this team is going to go from what they are now to a college football playoff contender, but there's several wins in there that I think could have been flipped if Sellers were to have been kind of what we expected. And, you know, that's not a shot at him. It's just the reality of it. And so I think for Carolina, you can't just like, I mean, I said this on the O-line, man. I don't think you can sit here and be like, oh, yeah, tell the whole O-line to leave. They struggled. We don't need any of those guys. We'll go in the portal. That is not a recipe for success.
Yeah.
Like I think it's going to be very important. How many guys on that O-line individually struggled this year? And it's really where you say, I love you as a kid, but as a person, but we've got to upgrade at a position. How many of those guys with a different coach, a different coordinator, a different approach, another year of development are able to rise above the level of play you've already seen from them? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, you think about a Shed Surratt, right? Shed Surratt made a lot of waves in spring, preseason, and maybe some of you are like, well, that's because nobody else is any good. You know, Shed Surratt, we heard enough good things about to where you can kind of say, okay, there's a good player in here. Missed some time early in the year, played 3 different positions, right? He's played left guard, he's played left tackle, he's played right tackle. Oh, and he's a true freshman, right? So is there a world in which Shed Surratt can, with development, with a new offensive line coach, as you said, Wes, and a new offensive scheme, can you see a path of him becoming a really good player? Yeah, that path is there. That doesn't mean it will definitely happen, but you can see that. There are other areas where, you know, you kind of get the sense when it's maybe some older guys who haven't developed as much, And you can kind of see, all right, there's maybe not as much of a path here. And that's when, frankly, I think you're going to have to go to the transfer portal and find a starter or two or three or however many they deem necessary, right? So the other part of this, Wes, is you hire a new offensive coordinator, you tab a new offensive line coach. Well, what do they think about the roster? Shane Beamer and the rest of the coaching staff, the scouting, recruiting department, they may have their thoughts. A couple new guys may come in, including the guy who's actually going to coach that position unit, talking about the O-line specifically. They may say, you know what, we like these guys. We maybe need to go in a different direction here. You have some time until the portal opens in January. And as you noted earlier, a lot of that background work is already being done. Who are our targets once the portal opens, et cetera. So you've got some ideas on that, but they might shift a little bit based on bringing in a couple new coaches. But I do anticipate there's going to be some turnover at that position in terms of outgoing and incoming. And it's kind of hard to answer those questions in terms of who's leaving. Obviously, who's going to be coming in is almost unanswerable at this point from a transfer portal perspective. But that's one of the spots where I think you're going to see some turnover. And there, Wes, there could be anything from significant turnover on this roster to, I don't know, what's a little higher than significant, maybe, I don't know, extreme turnover. Like there's going to be turnover on this roster, outgoing and incoming. I think there's still a question of how much, in these next few days, these next couple weeks, all the conversations that are going on before the portal opens, it's going to be integral, to figuring out the answer to that question.
Yep. WJM4, what is that in response to in the chat? Chris, let's take a moment here. I'll let you go first, man. Let's tell everybody about our friends at Palmetto Golf and Belts.
Yeah, our friend Brandon Cohen, ran into him at the South Carolina basketball game and at church, actually, the other day. Great guy, great family, local guy, big Gamecock fan, longtime member of Gamecock Central. Got the online shop at Palmetto Golf and Belts, palmettogolfing.com. We're in December, guys and gals, and so that means if you got a golfer in your life and maybe you're thinking about a gift for them, go check out palmettogolfing.com. Custom golf belts, gloves, towels, and tees, extremely well-made products. Our members over at Gamecock Central on the Insiders Forum are loving them. They always get great reviews. He's got a variety of colors and designs. He's got the garnet. He's got the state of South Carolina blue, the palmetto tree and moon. The cross design has been very, very popular. The needlepoint belts, extremely well-made. Plus, they're more affordable than a lot of the options you're going to find in shops and in online stores. So again, custom golf belts, gloves, towels, and tees. That's at Palmetto Golf and Belts at palmettogolfing.com. Go check them out now. Brandon's always running a bunch of specials where you can get great deals as the holiday season's here. That's palmettogolfing.com.
Definitely want to tell everybody also about our friends at Game Time, gametime.co, or just get the Game Time app. Chris, I know you're a soccer fan. Did you know you can actually get World Cup tickets on the Game Time app?
I did know this. I'm considering it. I'm trying to map out, like, can I go? Do I want to go is not a question, but can I go? And Wes, one of the parts of that is like hotel costs are really high for the World Cup, as you can imagine. What city do I want to go to and when? And one of my concerns is obviously the ticket prices, but like when you have gametime.co or the app, like they'll help you get the best possible deal, in my opinion.
Yeah, we've both used the app. I went to the World Series tickets, dude, probably the toughest ticket I've ever had to get, period, to any event, and was able to use this app and actually got to the game. It was reasonable in terms of the pricing. And one of my favorite parts, man, also is that the fees are included. You're going to know your total up front, no surprise fees at checkout. It's really a lifesaver also in that you can even see your price drops for tickets for certain events in real time. You can get alerts when seats open up. Then you can grab the tickets the moment they hit the app. So whether it's a big event like that on kind of a national level or a more local level like concerts, going to South Carolina football, basketball, baseball games, whatever it may be, Game Time app has you covered. They also have lowest price guarantee. They're going to credit you 110% of the difference if you find the same ticket in the same area of the stadium for a cheaper rate. Game Time ticket coverage, that means your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So, man, if you want to go to the World Cup or any of these other events, download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code ON3. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply on that. But again, create an account, redeem the code ON3 for $20 off from our friends at Game Time. Shout out to them. They've been a sponsor for a while now, man, throughout the On3 network. So, again, all we ask is you put some – just give our sponsors a chance to earn your business, essentially, is what we ask, because they do a great job of supporting the show. Let's talk OC, man. It was a eventful, uneventful day on Sunday in terms of offensive coordinator. There was buzz floating around about John David Baker, the East Carolina offensive coordinator. There was buzz. Hey, he's the guy. He's going to be the guy. Then there was, hey, hold your horses. This is like not true or not true yet. And there's been other guys, frankly, that their names are still out there too. And, some guys, Chris, we've kind of just heard like enough about to say, I think they're on our radar, but not enough to say they're 1,000% on Shane Beamer's list. You got Kevin Decker from Old Dominion is a name that's just kind of floated around. You've got Brad Glenn at Cincinnati, a name that's floated around, has ties to the, to the area, is from South Carolina. There's other names that would make a lot of sense that we've talked about. And, I do think those names we talked about are worth talking about. And I think maybe my biggest takeaway to this point, man, Chris, is you are starting to see a little bit of a trend, assuming the connection here are real with these coaches. It's kind of following what we reported previously. Like, you're not seeing Beamer linked to a bunch of NFL coaches. All these guys, they don't run the same system. They all have their own schemes, their own systems. But I feel like there's some overlap among most of the names that we've heard in connection to this job.
Yeah, we know that Shane Beamer is looking for this time around a college offensive coordinator who, is going to serve as the quarterback's coach, at least in title. And then, generally now, Wes, you have more flexibility as a staff numbers wise to be able to devote somebody that formerly would have been, quote unquote, off the field to coaching quarterbacks. So we may see some of that too. But that's kind of the trend. And now, who will it end up being? We don't know. I do think one of the notions, and I'm about to write about this today, the idea that Shane Beamer is not kind of shooting high in terms of proven college guys where you know who they are and what they've done. We got to knock that down. That is not me saying that it's going to be one of those guys, right? A lot of those guys already have really good, well-paying, high-paying, stable, productive situations. Some of those guys are going to have head coaching opportunities, whether it's this offseason or very, very soon, right? So being interested in a guy and actually landing that guy, obviously two very different things. But the point I'm trying to make is if it's not a sitting Power 4 coordinator who's been at a school that just was in the playoff, that doesn't mean Shane Beamer didn't show interest in any of those guys. It might be that some of those guys weren't as interested. May have been, frankly, that he didn't feel like they were the right fit. But he does have to find, as we all have said many times, this is an absolute pivotal hire because they're going into a season where, quite frankly, it's going to be very important to win some games. And to do that, you're going to have to be better offensively than you were this year. And you're going to have to correct some of the issues that have plagued this program in the last few years, even when they have been successful. So, yeah, a lot of people, there was a lot going around yesterday. It's the nature of social media and message boards and all that, Wes, that if something gets kind of out in the ether or quote unquote reported or more frequently curated by some social accounts. Oh, it's happening. Somebody on our board yesterday, where's the news about John David Baker? I thought it was a done deal. It's like, nobody's actually reported it's a done deal. Is he a name to watch that I think has been vetted and maybe a guy that's in the mix? I do think there's legitimacy to that. That's kind of a far cry from a done deal. Does he end up being the guy? I mean, I don't know, maybe at some point, but point is, everything that we've gotten, Wes, kind of indicates that there's not a hire that's been made or even one that's imminent. It could move quickly. I mean, we're at 10 a.m. on Monday here. Signing day is Wednesday. We know Shane Beamer wants to move as fast as possible. So it could happen very quickly. You might get off this podcast and start hearing things about a new OC being hired, but tracking it as best we can. Continue bringing the news as we get it. Best I can say.
Yeah, I think with I'll give a little background here. Maybe people will find this interesting. So there's these different circuits that information can come from. And so there's like the agent world, which sometimes is accurate, but sometimes is, my guy's interested in this job, or I need to drum up interest for my guy. Yeah, there's interest. There's interest with South Carolina and my guy. And the interest is more on that coach than it is from Shane Beamer and company. Then there's a circuit, what I like to kind of call the booster circuit, which is like, these are your Gamecock boosters. You got to be careful there. A lot of times that circuit will find out things first, but it's not always ultimately like the final answer, essentially. So when you hear it there, you got to be careful. Hey, this is maybe a game of telephone going on. This is maybe an echo chamber going on. This is, hey, I heard we were hiring John David Baker. And then that gets repeated as South Carolina is hiring John David Baker. And then somebody else says it. So then, well, hey, I heard it from multiple people. Well, it originated from the one person. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I would say this. I've had like multiple people who are kind of tied in, but aren't like administration or coaches or something like that, say, hey, it's looking like John David Baker. That doesn't always mean, sometimes that ends up being the coach. Sometimes it doesn't end up being the coach. So until you get it confirmed on like an administrative level or a head coach level, or there's like a press release or something like that, or honestly, frankly, sometimes that coach himself will start telling people, hey, I'm going to South Carolina. He'll start informing the school he's at before, informing his players. That's when it becomes real. So nothing that we're aware of is to that point yet. There are still some other names floating around. This thing is still, I would say, in process for South Carolina. Can you think about the possibility of a John David Baker? Yeah, I think so. But I think you can continue to think about the possibility of some of those other guys as well. Most of the names I've heard, Chris, have been spread offensive systems. John David Baker is kind of from the Kiffin tree. Kevin Decker at ODU is from it's not really from the Josh Heupel tree, but he essentially studied the Josh Heupel scheme and incorporated that into what he was doing. That's a fun offense, man. I personally really like the Kevin Decker offense because it is the Josh Heupel kind of Art Briles super spread, but it is not all based on tempo. Like they go tempo at times, but when they're not going tempo, you're going to see shifts, you're going to see motions, you're going to see, we're not just going to line up and snap the ball and be spread out. We're going to give you all this eye candy and also be spread from like one sideline to the other. So I could see with some of South Carolina's talent, if they had come back, that being a fit. And then I think there's also names that, Chris, you and I have heard like here and there that have not floated around on the internet yet, that have not kind of received that little boost of somebody hearing it and repeating it, but the names are out there. And so I'm intrigued to see what direction this goes. I think we'll start to have a little bit more clarity as this week progresses. And certainly once South Carolina, a lot of the focus right now has to be on signing day, you know?
A lot of the focus has to be on signing day. And, ideally, Wes, you would like to get this thing done, I think in an ideal world before signing day, just to have an opportunity for your commitments, 14, 15 in the class, few of whom are offensive linemen, right? Darius Gray, Zion Giles, Anthony Baxter, to be able to, have a conversation and communicate with those guys. Whether or not that happens, we don't know. That'd be the ideal situation, but the important thing, obviously, is being able to nail down who actually is the hire. So there's a lot being juggled right now. Coaching staff stuff. And that, look, one question, Wes, we haven't really asked that needs to be asked that we don't know the answer to. Are there any other tweaks to the staff? Obviously, Beamer's going to be filling at least 2 spots. Are there others? We don't know that yet. You've got exit meetings. You got preparing for the portal. You got signing day coming up. There's a lot going on. And with that, Wes, I'm pretty sure we're probably getting close to closing it out. Man, should we tell people about the old Cyber Monday deal we got going on?
Sorry, Chris. I was trying to listen to a talk to text because I'm trying to make sure it confirms something before I said it on the show. So I have no idea what you asked me.
Do we have breaking news?
It's not breaking news. It's just
okay,
confirmation of something we already have kind of been saying on Gamecock Central, but I wanted to make sure this wasn't somebody telling me, no, that's not the case anymore.
Okay.
The thing about doing a podcast, dude, it's not like a message board where you can just come back and be like, oh, hey, this has changed.
Yes.
You put it out there, and especially in recruiting, if something changes in like 6 hours,
which it can.
Then somebody listens to it later on, they'll be like, that guy's a moron. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Complete idiot. Yeah.
So I don't know what you asked me. I was trying to check on the Carson Baker situation. So Gamecock, 4-star target, committed to Florida. As of last check, it seemed like a very real chance he will flip to South Carolina. Very good chance.
Yep.
I was making sure this did not tell me that I'm wrong on that.
Okay, so still a good chance.
But I didn't get it. I didn't get to finish listening. So.
Oh well, that was my fault. Okay. Well,
what did you ask me?
The good thing about it is, for me at least, is if I say something dumb on the podcast, people just think it's you. I got called Wes again the other day, out at the Clemson game. This phenomenon needs to be studied. Do we need to start putting our names on the little bubble on the stream? Maybe that'll help. I don't know. I literally thought about that the other day. Anyway, what I was asking you is,
not used to have our names on here?
We used to have them. We just took them off, just to, I don't know, save space or something. I don't know why we did it. Just to make it look cleaner, I guess. We might need to consider that. I am Chris. If you see me, I am Chris. Anyway, what I was saying, though, before I interrupted your talk to text listening or your voice memo, is that there's a lot going on, and I felt like maybe we should tell the people about the Cyber Monday deal. Do you think we should do that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Cyber Monday deal, if you go check out GamecockCentral.com.
It's the Black Friday graphic, but it's the same.
It's the same premise. Yes.
Yeah.
Just change out, use your imagination, change out Black Friday for Cyber Monday. 50% off the Ultimate Fan Bundle, which is Gamecock Central, On 3, and Rivals. Wes, in some ways, totally shameless plug. This actually doesn't have anything to do with Gamecock Central. We are on 3, and there's going to be so much to cover. All the stuff we talked about, OC search, O-line coach search, any other coaching changes, NIL, transfers in and out, signing day. Right, that's enough, I think. But, dude, I spent hours yesterday reading On 3 sites, because I don't know if y'all saw or not, but there was a lot going on in the college football world. Multiple hires, the Kiffin saga. Last night, Mark Stoops, the news breaking, he was going to get let go at Kentucky. I mean, I'm almost ashamed of how much time I spent reading On 3 message boards and all the scoop from the team sites, from Pete Nakos, the national team. Like when you subscribe to Gamecock Central, you get access to all that stuff. You can't post on the Auburn or Clemson or Florida message boards, but you can go read the stuff. So there's a ton of value. You can get 50% off your first year. Gamecock Central and the On3 network and Rivals. And you get a full year of access to the Athletic too. So just an amazing deal. So go check it out, GamecockCentral.com if you're not a member.
Yeah, and the Kentucky thing, dude, was the classic. I'm sure somebody else got credit for breaking it, quote unquote. I think ESPN was maybe first to like put it out publicly or whatever. But if you were a Kentucky fan, I believe it was Cats Illustrated, right? That's the first place I saw it.
Yep.
That made the post that essentially were like,
"It's happening.
Be ready."
Yep.
Like this thing is in motion, and then boom. Because I mean, dude, to say a guy's getting fired, you got to be,
better be sure.
You got to be 100% sure. But they were the first to be like, "Don't believe everything you heard. This thing like has a real chance of about to happen. It might be tonight." And sure enough, I think it was minutes later, it breaks for good. So, dude, most of the SEC, ton of the SEC has turnover right now. So, can you take advantage if you're South Carolina? We shall see.
Yep.
Disappointing year, obviously. But there could be some opportunities if you can take advantage of it, just based on all the turnover elsewhere. Carson Baker, someone who's back on your radar because of what's going on at the school he, I guess, technically is still committed to in Florida. So we'll see. We'll see how this plays out on the portal. Crazy, crazy year. The team at On3, though, man, they've been phenomenal through this entire thing. Watching all the Ole Miss beat guys, man, just kind of have to follow this thing too. Has been from the viral comment from Ben to I mean, and I don't care, dude. Neil McCready works for an opposing site or whatever. Neil, phenomenal dude over at 24/7 Sports.
The best.
He's been on that beat forever. Just the Neil's delivery on things is perfect.
He's one of a kind, man. I texted Neil. I don't mind saying that. I texted Neil yesterday, and I'm like, dude, I'm in awe. Like y'all are absolutely killing it. And then what he, the way he writes, the way he delivers, fantastic. So I mean, you couldn't script some of this stuff, man, that we've seen this offseason. It's been nuts.
Dude, I feel for those guys though, man. Like,
yeah.
I'm sure the level of crap they heard and had to sort through. Is this true? Is this not true? Hey, I heard this. And then you have Charlie Weiss Jr. He's leaving. He's not leaving. He's leaving. He gets on the plane. Did you see we got to get off here. Did anybody out there see the video from when the Ole Miss, when Lane and his staff are getting on the plane and somebody goes, "What? That's Charlie. That's Charlie. That's Charlie. F Charlie." It just
coordinating just to make sure. Yeah.
Turns. But then it's like, hey, Charlie actually might not be gone. According to message board rumors, his wife is ticked off at him for getting on the plane. Cannot confirm. And it's like,
we don't know.
Is Ole Miss going to send a plane to Baton Rouge to re-pick up their offensive coordinator who, I mean, dude, these poor assistants, I don't say poor assistants, but they got put in a bad spot too, man.
Yep. If you're coming, you got to come right now. Yeah, maybe Charlie Weiss is like, well, I'll come back. I could always come back, So hey, let me go ahead and he might have told his wife, like, I'm getting on the plane just in case. I might come back. I'll let you know.
What if he's like, I need you to flip out?
we got to go deep on this thing. Yeah, maybe so. I don't know. It's been what I mean. I don't know. It's college football, so I don't want to say we'll never see anything like this. And this being the Kiffin saga plus all the other stuff going on in the background, all the other coaching changes. We may see it next year at this rate. This sport is amazingly incredibly stupid and fun and entertaining.
It's WWE right now.
But man, I don't know. It might be a while before we see something like this. So
yeah, no doubt. All right, y'all. Hey, check out Gamecock Central for complete National Signing Day coverage coming up. It is on Wednesday, but of course we'll have coverage leading up to that. And we'll hop back on here. Don't know the plan, the schedule yet. We'll hop back on here at some point to talk about signing day and kind of what's going on there. So appreciate y'all joining us. We got to get out of here. We're out of time. But for Chris, I'm Wes, and this has been another episode of GC Live. We'll see